Welcome back and happy Friday. I hope that this episode finds you well. I had to do this episode multiple times, so I'm a bit tired, irritated, and everything, but I hope my energy is still good because today we have a debate, and I love a good debate on whether we need to understand things in order to move forward. And I'm talking here whether it's your personal relationship, your relationships to others, or even your business. It can be in any area of your life. You know, when you're like, oh my God, I need to understand why this happened in my childhood and what happened in my childhood for me to act this way or to feel this way. And you constantly dig deeper. I think it's also connected to something we can call the healing trap, which is this thing when you go dig deep inside of you to heal something, and then you get the high, the excitement, the joy of the liberation of that. Wow, you had a breakthrough and now you're such a better person and it feels really good. So then it can create this system where you're always digging for something, and that can have problems too. But again, the debate is also like, do we need to understand things in order to move forward, in order to take action, in order to grow, and in order to be, a better version of ourselves? So let's debate. I think in a way we need to. In a way, yes, the answer is yes, we do need to understand. Because when we understand, we bring awareness and consciousness. We cannot move forward in life with no awareness. You cannot act on something you're not even aware of. So having awareness of yourself and your patterns and your insecurities, the things in your past that hurt you, maybe something that your mom experienced when you were in the womb, or even something from your lineage, can be very interesting, so that you feel the reassurance and it gives you the context of why you may be acting this way. I think it's super important. On the other hand, and that's why I wanted to create the podcast today, we don't need to. Once we know enough, we don't need to. When you see a situation in your life that is causing trouble or pain or anything, you can act on it without knowing the root cause of why it's like this. And I'm saying that from a conversation I had with someone from my close circle. Recently, she's experiencing a lot of trouble with her relationship with her partner. And she called me saying that she was doing all the work to go and dive deep, and called her mom and grandma and her dad and everybody in her family to understand why she was so jealous, why she had this reaction, this lack of communication, why she felt this way and everything. And I think it's really great to do this work. It's often during the podcast that she also wants to express herself. So we're going to let her express herself and we're going to continue this topic. I kind of lost my thread of thought, but to come back, I want to share with you the context, which, by the way, I think is important. As I said, let's say the first part of the answer of the debate, one side is yes, it's important. It's important because sometimes the context makes you feel liberated. If you know, for example, that you're afraid to be sensual in your body because there is a whole context of the witch hunt and a overly masculine overly masculine world in which we evolved, and there is no space for what it means to be a woman and everything, and sensuality is shamed, and women have been controlled for years and centuries and whatnot. Well, it helps you to understand, I understand why I feel awkward. I understand why I feel afraid or ashamed or stuck in the expression of myself in this way. Or if, for example, you are feeling extremely scared of being abandoned, and that's what your mom felt when you were in the womb, that's so liberating because you're it comes from somewhere. So having the context sometimes really helps. And that's why it's not black or white. It's a real debate. There is valid points on each side. But the context I wanted to bring is the context in which I show up with that subject today, because I felt extremely uninspired, extremely tired, exhausted from a lot of life stuff that showed up in the house we had to fix, and then we had family coming. I had my cousins that I haven't seen in 7 years. It was intense, to say the least. It was amazing, but we had family gatherings like for lunch and dinner every day for a few days in a row. And then I needed a few days to recover. And here I am, not fully recovered, in my luteal phase. So, my bleed is approaching. I'm feeling extremely tired, but I'm also really passionate about all those topics. And I'm not leaving you without your weekly episode anyway. So I'm on ChatGPT, and I'm telling ChatGPT, okay, the way I get inspired for the podcast is usually through conversations. So I'm telling ChatGPT I need inspiration for my podcast because I'm really uninspired and I haven't talked to anyone about deep stuff in a long time. And I didn't really want to reach to an actual friend. So I turned to my friend ChatGPT and asked, let's have a conversation. And ChatGPT was deep, right away, asking me questions about my insecurities and business and whatnot. And at some point, something showed up, like a pattern of starting and stopping. And, I get into the conversation trying to have something that sparked my inspiration. I usually do the podcast on a spark of inspiration, not just something I want to talk about and it's boring. I need to be like, oh yes, that's it. That's what I want to talk about it. I want to feel the fire inside of me. So today we're talking, and at some point ChatGPT asked me something like, you mentioned that stopping and starting is a pattern, and I wonder, what do you think is at the root of it? Is it the perfectionism? Is it the fear of inconsistency? Is it something else? Whatever. And I got so annoyed. I'm like, oh no, don't do that to me. Do I need to go to the root cause of everything, or should I just keep on moving and taking action in the direction that I want? And I was like, there we are. There we have it. Inspiration. Because I also had this friend I mentioned in my close circle that was struggling in her relationship recently and told me she was doing the work to dive deep and understand everything. And I have this other friend who's doing also tons of work. I think every week he's booked I don't know how many sessions for past life regressions and stuff like this and other modalities. And I'm like, okay, I see it. I see it within myself too. When I was younger, I couldn't move forward if I didn't understand why. I needed the comfort and the clarity that it brought me to understand why I was the way I was. And one day everything flipped forever. Because I was always like this. My mind is always going like this. And I'm sure in my audience listening to this podcast today, I have people like this that really know what it is to be constantly questioning. You're always in your head, asking the questions about life and the meaning of things. And you love the deep things. And I feel you, because this is how I am. And one day, I remember I'm in my garden in Leeuwarden, Netherlands. And I'm watching a video from Karen Liss. Oh my God, I don't even remember who is this woman, but she wrote a book called Why People Don't Heal. It's fascinating, by the way. And she has a conference. I think the woman actually passed away now. It's very old conference. She's an old lady doing sort of a TED talk. I don't really remember, but I remember being on my computer on my screen watching a YouTube video about her. And at some point in the conference, she says something along the lines of, people always want to understand why things happened. What if an angel came down on earth with all the answer, and you're asking the angel, why this happened, and why this and why that? And the angel just replied, because it did. That's it. And I don't know, the way she said it, with her her energy and everything, and that for me was the switch where I was like, oh shit, I don't need to understand everything in order to move forward. Maybe things happen just because they had to, and I don't need to go to the root of everything. And maybe I'm wasting my energy
trying to go to the root of everything. And maybe it's actually taking a lot of energy and not bringing a lot of peace or anything positive for that matter.
But of course, I always still cultivate like understanding why things happen. And especially as I said before, like sometimes the context really helps us to understand why things might not be even ours. But, you know, even in order to question that, you need to go and do a bit of digging. So that's again, that's not black and white. That's very nuanced. But I think I want to emphasize now on the aspect of you don't need to understand. Just take the action. Just work on whatever it is that is blocking you. You don't need to understand why. I don't need to understand why I'm starting and stopping and where these patterns come from. I don't need to know if it's my perfectionism. I don't need to know if it's like my fear of whatever, success or whatever. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, it's interesting. And what I'm going to do with this information anyway. You know, if I dig deeper and I'm like, oh, that's it. I'm afraid of success. Or, oh, that's it. I'm, what was the other thing? I'm being a perfectionist. Like, okay, cool. And so what? I still have to show up daily if I want to. I still have to work on this part of me that is inconsistent. I still need to do the work and take the actions. And it's hard because it's like looking ourselves in the mirror and taking a really good look. And it's almost like killing our ego, because understanding why sometimes put us in the victim place. And it's such a good place to be in, because then we don't need to be responsible for ourselves. And it's hard. It's hard for me. It's hard for everyone. But if you're on this path, like I think it's really, really brave. And we're all doing the best we can. But it's important not to stay stuck in the victim in your life, in victimhood, because you can stay there for a very long time, and that prevents you from moving forward and taking responsibility for yourself and your actions. It makes you a really shitty person, honestly. And I've been there, and I'm still, you know, placing myself as a victim many times and feeling sorry for myself. We all do this, and it's okay if it's contained, and if then you have moments of bravery, if I can say that like this, you know, if you have moments where it's not the case, where you're actually actively doing something to be a better person and to hear each other, like other people also, their experiences of yourself. Because like if you're a victim, then everyone is the villain. That's the problem. And if you're a victim, then you're gonna be mad at your parents and your exes and everyone that did you wrong, and you're never gonna learn from your experiences, and you're never gonna grow. You're never gonna become a better person. You're never gonna just listen. You're not gonna be able to listen. A victim doesn't listen. A victim doesn't take responsibility. And I think it's very extremely sexy to take responsibility for who we are and what we do. I cannot be mad at someone telling me like, oh yeah, I was mean, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, I hurt you, I'm sorry. That's it. Like, that's it. Sometimes it takes just super simple but hard for a lot of us. And I'm talking like I'm a pro of this, and I'm not. I'm not a pro. I learned, really, I think it's when I met PL that I became much better at it. I've done a lot of work prior to that, but he helped me to really see the impacts of what I do. And so in that relationship, I also don't need to dig and understand like why I do feel trigger. And because, okay, in the context of relationship, for example, where this can become problematic, if I'm feeling like afraid of PL's loyalty or anything because I got cheated on in the past and I project everything on him, it's so unfair. It's not fair for him because he's not responsible for my ex cheating on me. He's not responsible for that. So I cannot hold him responsible. It's great to understand where it's coming from. The fear, oh my God, I'm afraid. I'm triggered. I understand where it comes from. It doesn't help moving forward to just understand it. It takes responsibility of like, oh yeah, I cannot hold you accountable for what happened in my past. And I see it everywhere. And so I think it's an important topic. I'm going to stop here because baby needs me for real. And I think we have enough here to think and spark conversation. So ask yourself, like, is it worth it? Where in your life are you still trying to figure out where it comes from or the root of the problem, and it's actually an excuse for not taking action? And where in your life it's important for you to understand the context in order to move forward? Because also, the last part that we didn't talk about, if you're just in the moving forward and taking action on something blindly without the awareness of why, then you're doing things also for nothing. So I think both are really important. Yes, the awareness, just don't spend your whole life on it, and then move forward. What do you think? I'm curious to know your opinion. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and I see you next Friday.